welcome back. Hello, I am here with another Thor video because my last one kind of popped off and went crazy style. So I am back to show you guys some more games. So I tested 18 new games on the Thor, new as in ones that I did not record in my last video. And a lot of them were requests from you, actually. I tested PS1, PS2, 3DS, Switch, PC games through Game Native this time instead of Game Hub, and also PC games through Steam Link. People wanted to see what the latency was like there. A lot of it has to do with your internet connection. For me, I have pretty good internet and my gaming PC is hardwired, so everything runs a lot better than it could otherwise. My last video did kind of good, so this is like the third video I'm making on the Thor, and I'll probably make more because it does really well, so why not? The first game that I decided to test, Pokemon Omega Ruby. This one ran really well. I did have a few issues with it that I did not end up resolving. People were saying in my comments of my last video that 3DS is capped at 30 FPS, but I don't know if that's entirely true. My FPS counter clocked 60 as the cap, and I'm not sure if I was getting 60 or not. Kind of hard to tell if your FPS counter is lying to you, but it looked really good and it felt good. It felt stable, most importantly. I find on the handheld that 30 FPS is all you really need for it to feel stable, but it felt really smooth, so I didn't have any problems there. The two screens felt really good too. As usual, this thing is built for 3DS games, so I wasn't surprised about that. The issues I found with this game was, for some reason, when you pick your first Pokemon, it shows you the three you can pick, Torchic, Trico, and Mudkip. And Mudkip was like all white for some reason. And I was like, is this like something really rare, like a shiny Pokemon or something? I don't know that much about Pokemon, but no, it was just the game not quite running right. But it didn't change the gameplay at all, but I'm pretty sure if I do eventually come across another Mudkip, it will look a little weird, and I don't know why, but I have not had any issues with any other Pokemon yet, so I'm kind of waiting for it to be annoying to fix it. But yeah, it ran really well. The next game I tested was The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, and that one ran super good. Like, I was actually surprised. This was definitely 60 FPS, so there was not a 30 FPS cap on this. I could tell just by looking at it, it was 60 FPS, and it felt really good. I played a lot of games on this running at 30 FPS, and no complaints about that, but the 60 was like, whoa, this is running really, really well. It's not like it's a overly difficult game to run, but it felt really, really smooth. I had a 3DS when I was a kid, and I know that this felt better than that. Could have had to do with the OLED screen. The 60 FPS is probably the main cause for how well it felt. But yeah, I played a little bit of that and it ran perfectly. You get the minimap on the smaller screen, the bottom screen, which is really nice, and the top screen looked phenomenal. So yeah, if you're trying to play any 3DS games, this is definitely the device to do it. The next game I tested was Silent Hill, the first one on PS1. Again, with all these older consoles, no issues whatsoever. The emulator I used here is DuckStation. I tested this in another game with it, and you don't have to do any sort of binding of controls. Everything just runs smooth. Something interesting about Silent Hill that I saw online actually is that I guess for the world size they created, the fog was added so that they could keep the render distance super, super low for it to run really well. I didn't know that, but that's kind of interesting the way that games are developed with hardware limitations in mind. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but as usual on this thing, it ran perfect. There was no issues whatsoever. The next game I tested with DuckStation again for the PS1 is Spyro, and this game is actually really fun. I've never played Spyro on the PS1 before. I had it for, I want to say I've played, if there was a version for Game Boy, I think I played that, or DS maybe. I never had a PSP or any PlayStations growing up, so my guess is one of those, but it felt great and it ran really well. The next game I tested was Resident Evil 1, also for PS1. Using DuckStation again, and this one ran perfectly as well. The controls are kind of weird, but I think that's a limitation of just the old style games not using basic control schemes. Maybe it's more so that I'm just not used to it, but it's not really a third person game. Like, it kind of puts you in these sections where your character is pointed in different directions. Silent Hill does this too, and it's kind of weird which direction you're moving in, but I'm pretty sure that's the intended way to play the game. That's how they designed it, but it ran really well. But yeah, I had just played Resident Evil 9, the new one, and I just finished the playthrough, and it was really fun, but it was kind of funny going back to the very first one and seeing what that was like and how games have changed. But I really enjoyed the small amount of time I put into this. And I might do a playthrough on my stream, I'm not sure. We'll see. The next game I tested was for the PS2, and I tested God of War 2. And this game I had way more fun with than I was expecting to. Again, it ran perfectly fine. The fans stayed really quiet. I kept the settings in smart mode. I didn't have to do any tinkering for the emulator. The emulator I used was Nether SX2. I think that's the default or most common emulator for PS2 for Android, and it ran really well. I didn't have to reconfigure anything, didn't have to change any keybinds. It all just ran out the box, which I'm always really happy about. Most of the time that I put into making these recordings is usually just getting to a point in the game where I can play. Like usually these games start with cutscenes and tutorials and all that stuff. So getting to a point where I can actually play the game takes the most time, and it's an added bonus if I don't have to change any keybinds and things like that. But you definitely can change those keybinds in the emulator settings. The biggest challenge I find with the PlayStation games though is that your buttons on the Thor itself are A, B, X, and Y, right? And when it tells you press circle to do this or triangle to do that, my brain is just like, I don't know what button that is. So I just kind of hit every button to try and figure it out, but it all ran smoothly. So there's no issues with PS2 or PlayStation 1 emulation whatsoever. I've seen some people put a legend or like a guideline on their bottom screen, since it's not really being used for anything, to show them which Nintendo style buttons bind to which PlayStation buttons. And that seems really useful. So I might use that in the future if I was going to do a longer playthrough of any of these PlayStation games, which I kind of want to do with God of War 2. The next PS2 game I tried was Kingdom Hearts. This one also ran really well. It kind of hovered around the 40 frames per second area, but everything felt really good, and it didn't feel like there was any sort of stuttering or lag. And again, no bind changes, still using the Nether SX emulator, and it ran super good. Now onto the games that are a little bit harder to run. Back to some Switch emulation here. This one is interesting. This is Pokemon Let's Go Evee, and it's actually the game I've been playing most on the Thor recently. I played it a little bit on the Switch, and it's really fun, but right when you launch the game, your controls will not work. It wants you to select your play style or like how you'll be playing the game, whether you're doing handheld or with Joy-Cons, and that didn't work. So what you have to do is you have to go into your Eden settings. I'm using the Eden emulator for all my Switch emulation, and you have to go to your controller settings and then pick your controller number 1, select the controller type as handheld, and then you need to select auto map a controller, select the Odin controller, since this thing is basically the Odin with 2 screens, and then it worked, no problem. And you only have to do that once right when you start the game at first, and then from then on it'll work pretty much flawlessly. I didn't notice any sort of lag or slowdowns or anything. I think it's getting the 30 FPS that it's capped at. The frame rate counter, as well as the lower screen, says 40 FPS. I don't think it's getting 40 FPS, but it's kind of hard to tell with these games. I find it really difficult to get an accurate frame rate counter in these games. But yeah, it ran really well. The touch controls also run really well. So like when you're playing with your Pokemon or feeding it berries or whatever you're doing, that all works flawlessly as well on the top screen. They're both touch screens, so it works out of the box, no problem. The next game I tried was Diablo 3 for the Switch. I didn't even know Diablo 3 came out on the Switch, but it was really fun. I've been trying to get Diablo 4 to run natively on the Thor, and I cannot do it, and it's really upsetting because I really like Diablo 4, but I never played Diablo 3 before, and I was like, oh, okay, this looks kind of cool, and it's really fun. So I highly recommend the game. It ran really well. I didn't have to change any of the settings. I'll put on the screen what settings I do use for my Eden emulation, but yeah, it all ran really well. There were no slowdowns, no lag, so highly recommend if you want to play this game on the Thor. It can definitely handle it, no problem. It doesn't even get that loud when you're playing it either. Most Switch emulation, in my experience, has been pretty much flawless, aside from like the really heavy hitters like Tears of the Kingdom, and you can check out my last video on the Thor actually if you wanted to see some of that gameplay.
Help! Help! Help me! Help!
It's not perfect, and I probably won't be playing Tears of the Kingdom on that, even though it's one of my favorite Switch games. But other than that, yeah, no problems with any of these Switch games. Now, I did test one more Android game. I tested a few in my last video, but some people in my comments mentioned Zenless Zone Zero, and I had heard a lot about this game, but I hadn't actually tried it before. It is on the Play Store, so I just grabbed it from there. So this is just running natively on the Android device, and it felt super good. Like, the game is actually really fun. I was not expecting that at all. I'm kind of new to mobile gaming. I've never played any mobile games for more than 10 seconds like I did in my last video, but it felt super good. The controls all work no problem. You do have to go into the settings though and set the controller, like set the input type as controller instead of touchscreen. But once you do that, and it's just like all the other games, they all have you do that as well. But once you do that, it's flawless. It feels really, really smooth. Okay, now on to the PC games. So there's two sections here. There's PC running native, And then there's PC running over streaming. So like the Steam Link stream functionality. So you're basically running it on your gaming computer on the same network as you, so at your house or whatever. And as long as you're on that same network that your PC is on, you can stream gameplay from your gaming PC to your Thor or your phone or whatever. So starting off with the natively running PC games, I managed to get Rocket League running really well. And I tried Rocket League previously, not in any of my videos, but just because it's one of my favorite controller PC games, and I could not get it to run, and I was using GameHub. It just wasn't running well, and it was really laggy, and online wasn't working, and it was this whole thing. Maybe they fixed that, I don't know. I haven't tested it in a while, but playing it through Game Native was almost flawless. I was getting full 60 FPS in training. Now the trick with this though is that I was using the Epic Games version instead of the Steam version. Now you can't get Rocket League on Steam anymore, but I got Rocket League when it first came out in like 2016. So I do have it on my Steam account, but if you hook up your Epic Games account to Game Native and play Rocket League through Epic Games, it runs way better. At least in my testing, it runs super good. I got into online and I was getting around 60 FPS. There were some drops into the 40s. Like I think I dropped down to like 42 frames per second, and you might be able to improve the stability there by just capping it at 30. I don't know who wants to play that game at 30 FPS, but that's probably what the Switch version is capping at anyway. So if you ask me, this is the best way to play Rocket League mobily without having to lug around a giant PC handheld like a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally. I was shocked by this one. This one ran really, really good. The next game I tried, which is a newish game, I think it might have come out last year. I only discovered it a month ago. It's called HASTE, and that's another one I tried with GameHub, and it did not work well at all. But with Game Native, it ran a lot better. Like it was playable. Like with GameHub, I was getting like 20 to 30 FPS. It just did not feel stable or good at all. But with Game Native, I was getting 60. In the open world areas, I was in the 40s-ish for frames, but I was getting almost stable 60 during the runs themselves, and it felt great. I'm going to definitely play more of that on the Thor for sure. This is another one that actually surprised me. The next game I tested was actually requested by someone who left a comment on my last video, and I wasn't going to test it because it's kind of an expensive game, but it was half off on Steam, and I really like Dragon Ball, and I was like, this game kind of looks sick, so I picked it up and I tested it out, and this one was very difficult to run. I think I was getting a max of like 45 frames, so I was getting anywhere between 25 and 45 in that sort of area. I would say it's definitely playable, but if this is all you have in terms of how you're going to run the game, I don't think I'd recommend it, only because it wouldn't feel very stable. Now, if you have a gaming PC and you only want to play a little bit of it on the Thor, then why not? If you already have the game, go for it. You can install it, no problem. But it felt pretty good. I'm not very good at the game, as you can probably tell. I've literally never, this is my first time playing the game on the Thor at 45 frames per second, so it was a little bit difficult and a bit of a learning curve for me, but I think it's definitely playable. Like I can definitely see myself playing more of this for sure. The next PC game I tried running natively on the Thor is a game called ODDCORE. This is another one that someone left in my comment section and they wanted me to try. It looks like it's a roguelike sort of game or a roguelite, and this one was difficult. My personal opinion is that first person shooters are not very fun on the Thor. I think if you're going to do something like that, you would definitely want the grip for the Thor, because I find you can't really get your right thumb down to the right analog stick to like look around. I find that's pretty difficult without the grip, because you need to hold the device kind of awkwardly to get down there. It would take some getting used to. Like with first person shooters, I'm more used to keyboard and mouse anyway, so put a controller in my hands and I'm going to struggle either way. The main question here is it playable? And I think yes, but it did not run as well as I was hoping it would run. The graphics aren't anything crazy, but I was only getting like 30 FPS ish. 30 to 40 FPS I think is where I was hovering. The settings are all low, and yeah, it's definitely playable. I wasn't very good at it. I find the first person movement a little bit difficult, and it's kind of fast paced, so it's a little difficult. I did turn on aim assist to make it a little easier, but even with aim assist, it wasn't perfect, but it's definitely playable. Like you can absolutely play this game on here. If you're gonna do that, I would recommend setting a cap at 30 FPS just so you can like staple down the stability and just keep it at a static 30 FPS. It should be able to hold that. The next game I tried through Game Native is Risk of Rain 2. This is another one of my favorite games for PC. I kind of forgot how hard this game was. Now I did play it on keyboard and mouse when I was playing it on my PC. This would have been a couple years ago, but this also runs. I've tried this again through GameHub and it did not run very well, but with Game Native, it runs better. And I'm just seeing an overall performance boost in Game Native versus GameHub. Now, maybe there's some settings I wasn't tweaking correctly in GameHub. The main difference between Game Native and GameHub, I believe, is just privacy concerns around GameHub. Someone in my comment section on my last video was actually talking about it, and I guess Game Native is like the open source fork of Game Hub. Like, I don't know if technically there are performance bumps in there, but it sounds like there would be less overhead, maybe, and that could contribute to a performance boost. I'm not even gonna pretend to try and understand it. All I know is that I was getting like almost 60 FPS in Risk of Rain, and I know the graphics can get pretty crazy in Risk of Rain. I'm not good enough anymore to get to a point where there's a lot of stuff going on and I'm still alive, but it definitely felt playable. It did drop into the 30s at times, but it was more than playable. So I would highly recommend, if you're interested in running this on the Thor, I would say you can definitely do it. The next game I tried is a little unfortunate. It was probably bold of me to try this, but I did try Elden Ring on the Thor running natively, and that did not run very well. That I was getting like 10 to 15 frames. It felt like shit, to be honest. So this one, I mean, I really wasn't expecting much, to be honest, because I know it's a very difficult game to run even on a PC, but I was like, why not? Let's just see what happens. And don't do it. Don't do it. I do not recommend it. It's, I mean, it could be a good challenge if you're really good at the game. Try and beat it at 10 frames, man, because that is, that's another level of difficulty, I feel like. But yeah, like it runs, it won't crash, but the fans are blasting and your battery is probably screaming and it's pushing like 15 to 20 frames at most. So I would say Elden Ring is a no-go running natively. Now, I've tested those games on the hardware itself natively, and some people in my comments wanted me to try out Steam Link, so like streaming the game from a gaming computer to the Thor. I have a pretty decent gaming computer. I'm running a 3080 Ti with a 12th gen i9 processor, so it's a half-decent gaming computer, so it should be able to run all these games no problem. The question is my internet good enough to stream a game directly to my Thor and there not be a ton of input lag? So the first game I tested was Diablo 4, of course, because that's one of my favorite games, and it felt really good. The input lag was minimal. Like there was hardly any, not enough for me to notice. Maybe people who are really good at the game would notice it, but I can definitely see myself playing this game streaming on the Thor for sure. It's a bit sad that you have to be on the same network though to play it. At that point, if I'm in my apartment, I'll probably get on my gaming computer to play the game. But I guess, I mean, I don't know. Like I guess I could play it from my couch and that could be kind of fun. But even then, like I've ran a HDMI cable from my room to my living room so I can play PC games on my TV. The input lag's probably damn near close to the streaming input lag anyway, because it's such a long HDMI cable, but still, this ran really well over streaming, and if that's something you're interested in, then you should definitely do it. Steam Link will actually have you run some tests to make sure your internet is good enough to handle streaming, and then you can also dial back some settings, like how much of the game is being streamed. Like if you want to stream the game and your internet is not as good, you can stream it at a lower resolution, I think, and that'll make it a little bit smoother and get rid of input lag. But yeah, I was surprised by this one. It felt really good. The next game I tested was Elden Ring. I wanted to see if Elden Ring, if it can't run natively, why not stream it and see if that works? And Elden Ring ran much better over the stream. The input lag was minimal. Again, it didn't feel too bad. And again, better players would probably notice it more than me. I'm not very good at Elden Ring, but it felt fine. I would say this is like 100 times better than running it natively. Even though you don't get to play it away from your network, it runs so much better. So if you did want to run this over streaming, it's definitely possible and it runs really well. The last game I tested was the Oblivion remake, the remaster of Oblivion. I think it came out last year, and this one was weird. This one, it's kind of hard to see because my gameplay, I was in a cave and I didn't know how to get out, so it's really dark. But it ran fine. Like there was no lag, but there was input delay on this one. This one more than the other ones. Now, I don't know if that could have been a bandwidth limitation, like if something was downloading on my network that I was unaware of, that could slow down my connection to my game, but it ran fine. I think it's definitely possible. I didn't have the time to mess with the settings too much on this one. I won't be streaming Oblivion, I don't think, to the Thor, but still, I think it's definitely possible. Just for me, the input lag was pretty egregious, so this was the worst of the 3 that I tested over streaming. Anyway, those were all the games that I tested. I hope I covered all the ones that people asked for in the comments of my last video. I'd like to keep making more of these videos, so if you guys have any recommendations of other games, whether they're emulated, PC, whatever, let me know, and I'd be happy to test them. And I actually just today hit 500 subs, so thank you for that. That's super awesome. I have a new video that's on the way as well, right after this one, not gaming, so we're gonna see how that does. I don't know. The last one I posted that was not about gaming was kind of junk, so I don't know, we'll see. But I think in terms of the Thor, the next video I'm going to do is I'm gonna go through my front end and what I'm running on my front end and how I got it to look the way it looks. There's a million different things you can do with the UI on the Thor, and that's one of my favorite parts about it. So I think it'd be cool to make a video about that and see what people think. Anyway, thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and subscribe. I need 1,000 subscribers to make money off of y'all, so do it up. Thanks, guys. Goodbye. Later. Peace.